The alien ship floated like a broken toy in the darkness of space. Its sleek silver hull, once beautiful and perfect, now had holes punched through it by tiny space rocks moving faster than bullets. Inside, 12 beings from different worlds. We're slowly running out of time. Dr. Kestel pressed her three-fingered hand against the cold wall of her ship. The Harmony's edge had been her pride and joy just a week ago. Now it was becoming their tomb. The life support systems made sick. Wheezing sounds as they struggled to keep working. The air tasted metallic and wrong. "How long do we have?" asked Pilot Vrenka from across the small command room. His blue skin had turned pale, and his large eyes looked tired and scared. Kestel checked her instruments one more time, hoping for better news. There wasn't any. Maybe 6 hours, 8 if we're lucky. The other crew members sat quietly around the room. They came from 5 different planets, all peaceful worlds where people spent their time studying, creating art, and exploring the universe. None of them had ever faced anything like this before. Their ships were built for science, not survival. They had come to this solar system to study its planets and see if any could support life. It was supposed to be a simple research mission. Look at some rocks, take some pictures, collect some data, then go home to their families. Instead, they had flown right into a cloud of space debris that their sensors hadn't detected in time. Kestel looked around at her dying crew and made a decision. She walked over to the emergency communication panel and placed her hand on the activation switch. This was their last hope, though she knew it probably wouldn't work. "What are you doing?" asked Marin, the youngest member of their team. Her species looked almost like walking flowers, with soft petals instead of hair. Sending a distress call, Kestel replied, "Someone might hear it, but there's nobody out here," said another crew member. "This system is empty. We checked all the records before we came." Kestel nodded. "I know. But what else can we do?" She activated the emergency beacon. The message went out in 12 different languages, broadcasting on every frequency their ship could produce. It was simple and desperate. "This is the research. Vessel Harmony's Edge. We are in severe distress. Our ship is damaged and life support is failing. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need immediate help. We have 12 crew members. Our location is..." She gave their coordinates and then added, "Please hurry." The message shot out into space at the speed of light. Racing toward the nearest stars, Kestel knew that even if someone heard it, help was probably too far away to reach them in time. The closest known civilization was hundreds of light years away, but she had to try. Meanwhile, on a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star, something incredible was happening. Dr. Lisa Wong had been working the night shift at the Deep Space Listening Station for 3 years. Most nights were quiet. She would sit in her chair, surrounded by screens and computers, listening to the background noise of the universe. Sometimes she would hear pulsars spinning like cosmic light houses. Sometimes she would detect radio waves from distant galaxies. But she had never heard anything like this. The alien message came through so clearly that Lisa thought someone was playing a joke on her. The computer systems went crazy, trying to decode and translate the strange signals. But within minutes, the meaning became clear. Someone was asking for help. Lisa's hand shook as she reached for her phone. She called her supervisor, then the director of the facility, then the government officials who had told them what to do if this day ever came. The day when humanity would finally hear from someone else in the universe. Within an hour, the message was on the desk of Admiral Rodriguez at the Space Command headquarters. He was a tough man who had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. Though he had imagined it would be different, he had expected alien visitors to arrive at Earth, not alien refugees calling for rescue. "How far away are they?" he asked. His science team, "About 6 light years, sir, in the Kepler 440 system." "How long would it take us to get there?" The scientists looked at each other nervously. "With our fastest ship and the new faster-than-light drive, maybe a week, if everything works perfectly." Rodriguez stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of the city where millions of humans were sleeping peacefully, having no idea that history was about to change forever. They So they have only hours left, he said quietly. Yes, sir. We probably can't reach them in time. Rodriguez turned around, and his team saw something in his eyes that made them straighten up. It was the same look their ancestors had when they decided to cross oceans in wooden ships, or fly to the moon in metal tubes, or do any of the impossible things humans had always done. Get me Captain Stevens, he said. Tell her to prep the Defiance for immediate launch, full crew, full supplies, and that new experimental drive system, sir. The drive system hasn't been fully tested yet. It could be dangerous. There are people dying out there, Rodriguez said simply. We're going to help them. Within 2 hours, the word had spread to every major government on Earth. The response was the same everywhere. Humanity would answer the call. Money, resources, and personnel flooded into the space program. The entire planet worked together with a speed and determination that surprised even their own leaders. Captain Elena Stevens stood on the bridge of the Defiance as her ship prepared for launch. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She had flown missions to Mars and the outer planets, but nothing like this. This wasn't just about human exploration anymore. This was about showing the universe who humanity really was. Her crew of 43 men and women came from 20 different countries. They were soldiers, scientists, engineers, doctors, and explorers. Each of them had volunteered for a mission that might kill them all, but none of them had hesitated when asked. All stations report ready, called out Lieutenant Hayes from his position at the navigation console. Faster than light drive is online and stable, reported Chief Engineer Santos. Stevens looked out at the stars and thought about the frightened aliens waiting for help. That might never come. She thought about humanity's long history of rushing toward danger when others needed saving. It didn't matter that these beings were from another world. It didn't matter that humans had never met them before. Someone had asked for help, and that was enough. Take us out, she ordered. The Defiance shot away from Earth faster than any human ship had ever traveled before. Behind them, radio telescopes tracked their progress and sent messages of support. Ahead of them, in the cold darkness between the stars, 12 aliens waited and hoped and slowly ran out of time. Neither side knew what was about to happen when they met. The aliens expected to be rescued by another peaceful, civilized species like themselves. The humans expected to find beings who were probably similar to them. Both sides were about to learn how wrong they were. Space is vast and empty and cold. But sometimes, in the darkness between the stars, something beautiful happens. Sometimes, when people hear a cry for help, they don't ask questions or count the cost. They just go. That's exactly what humanity did. And the universe was about to learn what happens when you send a distress call to a planet full of people who refuse to let others die on their watch. 6 days. That's all it took for the human ship to travel between the stars and reach the dying aliens. For most species in the galaxy, such a journey would take months or even years. But humans had always been in a hurry, especially when lives were at stake. Captain Stevens stood on the bridge of the Defiance, staring at the damaged alien vessel on her main screen. The ship looked nothing like human designs, where human ships were built thick and strong like armored tanks. This alien craft was delicate and graceful, like a piece of art floating in space. It's beautiful, whispered Dr. Kim, the mission's xenobiologist. Look at those curves, those flowing lines. They build this ship like a sculpture. Yeah, well, their sculpture is about to become a coffin if we don't move fast, Stevens replied. She turned to her crew. Martinez, get me a full scan of that ship. I want to know where the survivors are and how bad the damage is. The scan results appeared on screen within seconds. The alien ship had been hit by dozens of micrometeorites. Its hull was punctured in 17 places, and radiation was pouring through the holes like water through a broken dam. Captain, said Chief Medical Officer Thompson, the radiation levels over there would kill most Earth animals in minutes, even with our best protection suits. We can only work in that environment for short periods. Stevens nodded. How short? Maybe 20 minutes at a time. Then we need to come back and let our bodies recover. That's not fast enough. Those aliens don't have 20-minute breaks left in them. Stevens thought for a moment, then made a decision that would have shocked any other species in the galaxy. We go in with minimal protection. Move fast, work hard, get them out. Her crew didn't argue. They trusted their captain, and they understood what she was really saying. Humans had evolved on a planet where everything was trying to end them. A little extra radiation was just another Tuesday for people from Earth. The rescue team suited up in what they called light gear, protection. That would have been considered suicide equipment by any other species. To humans, it was just enough to keep them alive while they worked. Commander Jake Morrison led the team across the empty space between the ships, moving with the casual confidence of someone who had done dangerous things his whole life. When the human rescue team cut through the alien ship's airlock, they found 12 beings in various states of collapse. The aliens were small and delicate, with thin bones and soft skin. They looked like they had been designed for a gentle world where nothing ever went wrong. Dr. Kestel, the alien scientist, was barely conscious when the humans found her. Through her fading vision, she saw something that didn't make sense. The rescue team was moving through her irradiated ship without the massive protection suits. That should have been necessary. They wore thin covering that looked more like work clothes than safety equipment. Is this real? She whispered in her own language. Morrison knelt beside her, and she saw his face through his helmet's clear front. He had the forward-facing eyes of a predator, but his expression was gentle and concerned. "You're going to be okay," he said, somehow speaking her language perfectly. "We're here to help." The humans worked like machines, but machines that cared about what they were doing. They lifted debris that should have required mechanical equipment. They moved through the damaged ship with perfect balance and zero gravity. They carried the injured aliens like they weighed nothing. And all dot, but what amazed Kestel most was their endurance. The human rescue team worked for 18 straight hours without stopping. They didn't take breaks. They didn't complain about being tired. They just kept going until every alien was safely aboard the human ship on the Defiance. Dr. Kim ran her medical scanners over the rescued aliens and shook her head in wonder. "Captain, these beings are incredibly fragile. Their bone density is about half of ours. Their muscle mass is maybe 30% of what we'd expect. And look at this, their blood chemistry suggests they evolved in an environment with almost no background radiation." "Meaning what?" Stevens asked. "Meaning they come from a paradise world. No natural disasters, no predators, no environmental challenges. Everything about their biology says they evolved in perfect conditions." Kestel, now recovering in the medical bay, overheard this conversation. She tried to sit up, curious about these strange beings who had saved her life. "Easy there," said Dr. Thompson, gently helping her stay lying down. "You need rest. The radiation exposure was severe. Your people," Kestel said slowly, still learning to speak the human language. "Where do you come from?" Thompson smiled, but there was something in his expression that made Kestel feel cold. "A place called Earth, third planet from our sun." "What is it like?" Thompson thought for a moment, trying to find words that wouldn't terrify her. "Well, our planet tries to end us pretty regularly. Earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, floods, droughts. The weather alone has wiped out whole civilizations. Then there are the animals. Most of them see us as either food or competition." Kestel's eyes grew wide. "That sounds horrible. How do you survive?" "We got tough," Thompson said simply. "Had to. Everything that couldn't adapt died out millions of years ago. What you see now are the survivors of thousands of generations of natural selection." Over the next few days, as the human ship escorted the repaired alien vessel towards safety, Kestel interviewed the human crew. What she learned changed her understanding of what intelligent life could become. The humans casually mentioned surviving ice ages that lasted thousands of years. They spoke of plagues that killed half their population, only for the survivors to rebuild and grow stronger. They described weather so violent it could level cities, animals so dangerous that humans had to develop tools and teamwork just to stay alive. But the worst part, explained engineer Santos during one interview, Wasn't the planet trying to end us? It was us trying to end ourselves. We've had wars that killed millions. We've built weapons that could destroy our whole world. We came very close to wiping ourselves out several times. That's terrible, Kestel said. How did you stop? Santos shrugged. We learned that we're stronger together than apart. The universe is dangerous enough without making enemies of each other. Besides, we found better things to do with our time. Like what? Like exploring space. Like saving people we've never met before. Santos smiled. Like answering distress calls from friendly aliens. Kestel began to understand something that would change galactic civilization forever. These humans weren't just another species. They were survivors from a world so harsh that it had forged them into something unprecedented. Beings capable of incredible violence who chose instead to be protectors. She watched human crew members share their food rations with the alien refugees. Without being asked, she saw them work extra shifts to keep the alien ship's repairs on schedule. She observed their children's games and entertainment, which all seemed to involve overcoming impossible challenges and protecting others. Dr. Kestel. Captain Stevens said, during one of their conversations, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Where we come from. When someone calls for help, you answer. It doesn't matter who they are or where they're from. You just go. Is that normal? For intelligent species, I mean?" Kestel thought about this question for a long time. In her galaxy, most species were peaceful and helpful, but they were also cautious and careful. They would certainly try to help, but they would plan and discuss and make sure it was safe first. The idea of dropping everything and racing across space to save complete strangers was almost unthinkable. "No," she said finally, "it's not normal at all. What you did, the speed, the risk you took, the way you threw everything you had at saving. That's extraordinary." Stevens looked confused. "But you needed help." "Yes. But you didn't know us. We could have been dangerous. We could have been lying. You could have died trying to save us." "Could have," Stevens agreed. "But we didn't, and neither did you." As they traveled toward the civilized systems, Kestel realized she had a problem. How do you explain to a galaxy of peaceful beings that they had just been contacted by the most dangerous species that had ever evolved? And how do you explain that these dangerous beings might be exactly what the galaxy needed? The universe, she was beginning to understand, was about to change forever. The journey to the nearest civilized system took 12 days for Dr. Kestel. Those 12 days changed everything she thought she knew about intelligent life in the universe. She spent her time interviewing the human crew, learning about their home world, their history, and their culture. Each conversation left her more amazed and more terrified than the last. These beings who had saved her life came from a planet that seemed designed to create the most dangerous species possible. "Tell me about your childhood," she asked Lieutenant Hayes during one of their daily talks. Hayes smiled, a friendly expression that still showed his sharp teeth. "Pretty normal, I guess. Grew up in Colorado, up in the mountains. My dad taught me how to survive in the wilderness when I was 8 years old." "Survive? What do you mean?" "You know, basic stuff. How to find water, build shelter, start fires, identify which plants won't poison you, how to avoid bears and mountain lions." Hayes spoke like he was discussing the weather. Kestel felt her skin grow cold. "Your parents sent you into areas with large predators when you were a child." "Well, they came with me at first," Hayes laughed. "But by the time I was 12, I could spend a week alone in the woods with just a knife and a water bottle. Dad said it was important to learn self-reliance. What if something had gone wrong?" He shrugged. "Then I would have figured it out or died trying. That's how we learn." This casual attitude toward mortal danger seemed to be universal among humans. Dr. Kim told Kestel about vacation trips, where humans deliberately went to dangerous places for fun. They called it extreme sports, jumping off cliffs with fabric wings, riding down mountains on thin boards, diving into deep water to swim with predatory fish. "You do these things for entertainment?" Kestel asked, barely believing what she was hearing. "Sure," Kim replied. "Life's more interesting when there's a little risk involved. Besides, it keeps us sharp." But the more Kestel learned about human entertainment, the more disturbed she became. Their movies and games were filled with scenarios where people fought against impossible odds. Their stories celebrated individuals who faced down armies, survived disasters, and overcame challenges that would destroy entire civilizations. Most of our popular stories, Explain Communications Officer Park, are about regular people who find themselves in terrible situations and have to fight their way out. We like stories where the good guys are outnumbered and outgunned, but win anyway through determination and clever thinking. Why do you enjoy stories about suffering and conflict? Park thought about this for a moment. I guess because that's been our reality for so long. Our whole history is people overcoming things that should have ended them. We admire that. We want to be like that. The humans showed Kestel historical records from their planet. She watched in horror as they casually described ice ages that lasted tens of thousands of years. They spoke of volcanic eruptions that blacked out their sun for years at a time. They mentioned asteroid impacts that wiped out most life on their planet, only for new species to evolve and thrive in the aftermath. Your planet has been hit by extinction-level asteroids multiple times, she asked Captain Stevens. At least 5 major ones that we know of, Stevens confirmed. The last big one was about 65 million years ago, ended the age of giant reptiles and made room for mammals to take over, and life just continued. Life on Earth is stubborn, Stevens said with pride. We've survived everything the universe has thrown at us so far: ice, fire, poison gas, radiation. Impacts from space, doesn't matter. Something always survives, adapts, and comes back stronger. But what truly shocked Kestel was learning about human history with each other. These beings had spent thousands of years in almost constant conflict. They had developed weapons of incredible destructive power and used them against their own species. We actually split atoms and used the explosion as a weapon, Chief Engineer Santos explained during a tour of the ship's power systems. Nearly wiped ourselves out in the process. How did you survive your own weapons? Barely, Santos admitted. We came very close to ending everything several times, but eventually, we realized that we were our own worst enemy. The planet was dangerous enough without us making it worse. So you stopped fighting? Santos laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. We never stopped fighting. We just got better at choosing our battles. Now we mostly fight against problems instead of each other. Disease, hunger, natural disasters, the challenges of space travel, stuff like that. Kestel began to understand that humans hadn't just survived their harsh world. They had been shaped by it in ways that went far beyond their physical abilities. Their entire psychology was built around the expectation that life would be difficult and dangerous. We have a saying on Earth, Dr. Thompson told her during one of her medical checkups. What doesn't end you makes you stronger. We've been living by that rule for millions of years. But how do you stay sane? How do you function knowing that everything around you is trying to harm you? Thompson smiled. We don't think of it as everything trying to harm us. We think of it as everything challenging us to be better. The universe throws problems at us, and we solve them. It's what we do. The human approach to problems fascinated and terrified Kestel. When faced with a challenge, they didn't retreat or ask for help from others. They studied the problem, developed solutions, and threw themselves at it with complete determination. On most worlds, she told Captain Stevens, when intelligent species encounter a serious threat, they adapt their behavior to avoid it. They move away from dangerous areas. They change their lifestyle to reduce risk. That's one approach, Stevens agreed. But humans tend to do the opposite. When we find something dangerous, we study it until we understand it. Then we find ways to make it work for us. Fire burned down our forests, so we learned to control fire and use it for cooking and warmth. Wild animals hunted us, so we learned to hunt them back. Diseases killed us, so we developed medicine. The ocean was dangerous, so we built ships. You don't avoid problems, you conquer them. We adapt them, Stevens corrected. Everything that was once a threat to humanity eventually became a tool. Even space, the most hostile environment possible, we turned into a highway. As they approached the civilized systems, Kestel realized she faced an impossible task. How could she explain to her people that they had been contacted by a species that viewed the entire universe as a personal challenge to overcome? The humans seemed completely unaware of how unusual they were. To them, their approach to life was normal and reasonable. They couldn't understand why other species would find their history frightening. The thing is, Lieutenant Hayes said during their final conversation before reaching the alien space stations, "We know the universe is dangerous. We've always known that. But that doesn't mean we have to be afraid of it. Fear just slows you down when you need to act. So you chose to be brave instead. We chose to be useful." Hayes corrected, "Brave, scared, doesn't matter. What matters is doing what needs to be done when it needs doing. Someone needed help, so we came to help. That's just what you do." Kestel looked out at the approaching space stations where her people waited. Soon, she would have to explain that humanity represented something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that had evolved beyond fear of death and chose instead to embrace the challenge of living. The galaxy was about to meet beings who saw the hostile universe not as something to hide from, but as something to master. And somehow, these dangerous creatures from a death world had decided that the best use of their abilities was protecting others. She just hoped her people would understand the difference between dangerous and evil, because humanity was definitely dangerous, but they might also be exactly what the galaxy needed. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within hours of the Defiance arriving at the first civilized space station, every major world knew the same shocking truth. There was a new species in the galaxy, and they came from a death world. The Galactic Council hadn't held an emergency meeting in over 300 years. The last time was when a rogue planet had threatened to crash into a major trade route. This was bigger. This was the kind of news that could change everything. Ambassador Threnduk of the Meridian Collective stood before the assembled representatives of 47 different worlds. His people were tall, thin beings with silver skin who had spent the last 1,000 years perfecting the art of peaceful negotiation. He had never been more nervous in his life. "Fellow council members," he began, his voice carrying across the great chamber, "we face an unprecedented situation. A species has emerged from a Class 12 death world. According to our xenobiologists, this should be impossible." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Class 12 death worlds were planets so hostile that the Council had declared them uninhabitable. They were worlds where the environment itself was actively trying to end all life. No intelligent species had ever been known to evolve on such a planet. "These beings call themselves humans," Threnduk continued. "Their planet, designated Earth by our star charts, orbits a variable star that produces deadly radiation. The planet itself has a gravity, well, nearly twice galactic standard. The atmosphere contains oxygen at toxic levels. The weather systems are violent beyond measure." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's statistics. Numbers appeared that made the assembled aliens gasp in shock. Atmospheric pressure, radiation levels, gravity strength, temperature, variations. Every measurement painted a picture of a world that should have been completely lifeless. Furthermore, Threnduk said, their evolutionary history shows constant mass extinction events. This species has survived multiple planet-wide disasters that would have ended civilization on any of our worlds: ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic super eruptions, atmospheric poisoning. Their planet has experienced them all. Representative Kaladin from the Crystal Worlds raised her hand. Her species looked like living gemstones, beautiful and delicate. Ambassador Threnduk, surely you're not suggesting that these beings are a threat to galactic peace. If they were truly dangerous, would they have rescued Dr. Kestel and her crew? That's exactly what makes them so concerning, Threnduk replied. They possess the capability for unprecedented violence, but they choose when and how to use it. This makes them unpredictable. The holographic display changed to show information gathered from the human ship. Images of human technology, crew quarters, and equipment appeared before the council. Everything looked wrong to galactic eyes. Look at their ship design. pointed out Chief Scientist Velter from the Academic Consortium. Where our vessels prioritize comfort and efficiency, theirs emphasizes durability and function. Their corridors are narrow and reinforced. Their equipment is built to withstand damage. This is not a research vessel. It's a machine built for survival in hostile conditions. But they used it for rescue, protested another representative. Yes, but examine their crew structure. They maintain what they call a chain of command, a rigid hierarchy designed for quick decision-making in crisis situations. They have specialists trained in what they call combat medicine and emergency response. These are not scientists or explorers. These are soldiers who happen to be doing scientific work. Dr. Kestel had been invited to address the council. She stood at the witness podium, still weak from her radiation exposure, but determined to speak for the humans who had saved her life. Honored council members, she began, I have spent weeks studying these humans. Yes, they are dangerous. Yes, they come from a world that would terrify any of us. But I have seen their true nature. And what is their true nature? Asked Threndo K. They are protectors, Kestel said simply. Everything about their evolution, their culture, their psychology, it's all built around the concept of protecting others. They have something they call pack loyalty. When they decide you are part of their group, they will literally risk their lives to keep you safe. But what happens when they decide you are not part of their group? Asked Representative Murdoch from the warrior clans. His people were one of the few militaristic species in the council, though even they would be considered peaceful by human standards. Kestel hesitated. She had wondered about this herself. I don't know, she admitted. But I believe that if you are not trying to harm others, they will consider you neutral at worst. The council's xenobiologists presented their analysis of human biology. The presentation was terrifying to most of the assembled aliens. They possess redundant organ systems, explained Dr. Zahn Eric. If one of their major organs fails, backup systems can keep them alive long enough to seek help. Their blood contains clotting agents that can seal wounds in minutes. Their immune systems can adapt to new threats in real time. They also show stress responses that would be considered pathological in any other species. Added Dr. Linara, when faced with danger, their bodies flood with chemicals that increase their strength, speed, and pain tolerance. They literally become more dangerous when threatened, but perhaps most concerning. Dr. Zahn Eric continued, is their capacity for what they call adrenaline decision-making. They can make complex tactical choices in seconds when under extreme pressure. This suggests their brains evolved to function optimally during life-threatening situations. Representative Kaladin looked troubled. You're describing a species that becomes smarter and stronger when facing death. How do you negotiate with beings like that? Carefully, admitted Threnduk. But the real shock came when the council learned about human technology development. While other species had spent centuries perfecting their tools and weapons gradually, humans had made massive leaps in capability during times of crisis. They developed space flight in less than 70 years, reported the technology assessment team. They went from primitive flying machines to interstellar travel in what we would consider an impossibly short time, and they did it while simultaneously developing weapons capable of destroying their own planet. They had planet-tending weapons. Before they achieved space flight, asked several representatives at once. Yes, and according to their historical records, they came very close to using them multiple times. The chamber fell silent. The idea of a species that would risk destroying their own world was almost incomprehensible to the peaceful galactic civilizations. How did they stop themselves? Asked Representative Kaladin quietly. Dr. Kestel stood up again. They realized that they were stronger together than apart. They had a choice between destroying everything or building something better. They chose to build. But they still have those weapons. Yes, Kestel admitted. But now they use that technology to power their cities and explore space. They turn their most dangerous capabilities into tools for creation instead of destruction. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some representatives argued that humanity should be quarantined until they could be properly studied. Others suggested that any species capable of such destruction should be eliminated before they become a threat. But Dr. Kestel kept returning to the same point. They saved us. When we called for help, they risked their lives to answer. That tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. On the third day, as the council continued to argue, an urgent message arrived that changed everything. Ships had been detected at the edge of civilized space. Large ships, heavily armed, moving toward the peaceful worlds with obvious hostile intent. The hegemony had finally decided to expand beyond their own territory, and the galaxy's first glimpse of true military threat was about to make everyone reconsider what they thought they knew about danger. The peaceful civilizations of the galaxy were about to learn the difference between beings who could be dangerous and beings who chose to be destructive. And they were about to discover why sometimes the most dangerous protectors make the best defenders. The emergency alert reached Captain Stevens while she was sleeping in her quarters aboard the Defiance. The sound that woke her was one she had never heard before, the galactic distress signal. Somewhere in space, entire civilizations were calling for help. She was on the bridge within minutes, still putting on her uniform. "What's the situation?" she asked Lieutenant Hayes. "Multiple alien fleets detected at the edge of civilized space," Hayes reported, his face grim. "They're big, Captain, really big, and they're heading straight for the populated systems." Stevens looked at the tactical display. The enemy ships were massive, each one larger than anything in the Galactic Defense Forces. There were dozens of them, moving in perfect formation toward worlds filled with billions of peaceful beings. "Who are they?" Stevens asked. "The galactic networks are calling them the hegemony," said Communications Officer Park. "Apparently they're a militaristic empire from the Outer Rim. They've been conquering systems for decades, but they've never moved this close to civilized space before." Stevens studied the tactical information flooding in from galactic sources. The hegemony's ships were built for one purpose: destruction. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand anything the peaceful civilizations could throw at them, and their strategy was simple: demand surrender or face complete annihilation. "Captain," said Dr. Kim from her station, "the Galactic Council is in emergency session. They're trying to organize some kind of defense, but their ships weren't built for this kind of conflict." Stevens understood immediately. The peaceful species of the galaxy had spent centuries building beautiful, efficient vessels designed for exploration and trade. They had no idea how to fight a real war against an enemy that wanted to destroy them. "Where's the nearest target?" Stevens asked. "The Zolani homeworld," Hayes replied. "Dr. Kestel's people. The hegemony fleet will reach them in 18 hours. Stevens didn't hesitate. "Set course for the Zolani system. Maximum speed, Captain," said Chief Engineer Santos over the intercom. "That's not our fight. We weren't invited to participate in galactic defense. Someone's about to attack the people who asked us for help," Stevens replied. "That makes it our fight." The Defiance raced through space toward a confrontation that would change galactic history. Stevens knew her ship was tiny compared to the hegemony fleet. She had 43 crew members against thousands of enemy soldiers. But she also knew something the hegemony didn't. Humans had been fighting impossible odds their entire evolutionary history. When the Defiance arrived at the Zolani system, the enemy fleet was already there. 12 massive warships hung in space like dark metal mountains, their weapons aimed at the planet below. On the surface, billions of peaceful beings waited helplessly for their doom. "Open a channel," Stevens ordered. "Captain," Hayes said nervously, "we're about to challenge an entire fleet with one ship." "No," Stevens corrected. "We're about to show them what happens when someone threatens our friends." The communication channel opened, and Stevens found herself speaking directly to the hegemony fleet commander. The alien on the screen was larger than most galactic species, with armored skin and eyes that showed no mercy. "Unknown vessel," the commander growled. "Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This system is now property of the hegemony. This is Captain Stevens of the Earth ship Defiance." She replied calmly, "You're targeting a peaceful world full of innocent people. I suggest you reconsider." The hegemony commander actually laughed. "One small ship against my entire fleet. Are you insane?" "Probably," Stevens admitted. "But where I come from, we have a saying: It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. What happened next became legend. Throughout the galaxy, Stevens didn't attack the hegemony fleet directly. That would have been suicide. Instead, she did something that confused and terrified the enemy. She made them think they were facing something much larger than one human ship. Using advanced electronic warfare techniques that no galactic civilization had ever developed, the Defiance began broadcasting false sensor readings. Suddenly, the hegemony's instruments showed dozens of ships appearing throughout the system. Phantom vessels materialized on their screens, each one transmitting the energy signature of a heavily armed warship. "Sir," reported the hegemony's sensor officer, "we're detecting multiple fleets converging on our position. Where did they come from?" The fleet commander stared at his tactical display in confusion. His sensors showed enemy ships appearing from everywhere, behind asteroids, from the far side of planets, even from within the system's asteroid belt. It was impossible, but the readings were clear. Stevens opened another channel, this time broadcasting to all hegemony ships simultaneously. "Attention hegemony fleet. You are now surrounded by the Earth Defense Force. Your weapons are targeted. Your ships are outnumbered. Surrender now or face the consequences." The truth was that there was still only one human ship in the system. But Stevens had learned something important about the hegemony during their brief conversation. They were bullies who picked on weaker opponents. They had never faced an enemy that fought back with intelligence and deception. "This is impossible," the hegemony commander muttered, studying his readings. "How did they mass so many ships?" His tactical officer was equally confused. "Sir, our sensors show at least 50 vessels, but visual confirmation is impossible. They seem to be using some kind of advanced stealth technology." On the bridge of the Defiance, Lieutenant Hayes was amazed. "Captain, how are you making them see ships that aren't there?" "Simple," Stevens replied. "Their sensors are designed to detect ships like theirs, big, heavy, and obvious. Our ship is small and uses different technology. We're basically invisible to their main scanners. So I'm creating false readings by bouncing our signals off space debris and making each piece look like a warship, and they're falling for it." They've never faced an enemy that uses deception as a primary tactic. In their experience, military strength is about who has the biggest guns. They don't understand psychological warfare. The hegemony fleet began to panic. Their formation broke apart as ships tried to target enemies they couldn't see. Some fired blindly at asteroids, thinking they were hidden enemy vessels. Others began jamming their own communications in an attempt to block human electronic attacks. Stevens watched the chaos with satisfaction. "All hegemony vessels, this is your final warning. Leave the system immediately or we will be forced to defend ourselves." The fleet commander made a critical mistake. Instead of trying to understand what was happening, he ordered his ships to fire on the planet below. If he couldn't fight the mysterious enemy fleet, he would at least complete his mission. That was when Stevens showed the galaxy what human warfare really looked like. The Defiance dropped its electronic deception and attacked the hegemony flagship directly, but instead of using brute force, Stevens employed tactics that no galactic military had ever seen. She used the system's gravity wells to slingshot her ship at impossible speeds. She hid behind planetary rings and asteroid fields, striking from unexpected angles. She turned the hegemony's own size against them, making their massive ships collide with each other as they tried to target her tiny, fast-moving vessel. Within an hour, the hegemony fleet was in full retreat. They had never faced an enemy that fought like this, an enemy that used speed, intelligence, and the environment itself as weapons. As the last enemy ship fled the system, Dr. Kestel's voice came over the communication channel from the planet below. "Captain Stevens, how did you defeat an entire fleet with one ship?" Stevens smiled. "We didn't defeat them. We just convinced them that they had picked the wrong fight. Sometimes that's enough." The news of the hegemony's retreat spread across the galaxy faster than their ships had arrived. For the first time in galactic history, a major military threat had been stopped not through superior firepower, but through superior strategy. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. But this time it wasn't to debate whether humanity was dangerous. It was to formally invite Earth to join as the galaxy's defender. Dr. Kestel stood before the council once more, no longer as a witness, but as Earth's first alien ambassador. The humans have shown us something important, she said. Being dangerous and being destructive are not the same thing. The hegemony was destructive. They sought to conquer and destroy. Humans are dangerous, but they use that danger to protect others. Ambassador Threndok, who had once argued for containing humanity, now spoke in their favor. We offer Earth membership in the Galactic Council with a unique role. Protectors of peaceful civilizations. Captain Stevens, attending the council session via hologram from the Defiance, accepted on behalf of humanity. We'll defend your worlds, she said simply. But we won't be controlled, and we won't change who we are. We wouldn't ask you to, replied Representative Kaladin. We've learned that sometimes the best protectors are those who understand how dangerous the universe can be, and so humanity found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or explorers, but as the guardians who stood between peaceful civilizations and those who would harm them. The Deathworlders had chosen to be defenders, proving that sometimes the most dangerous beings make the most devoted protectors.